The Grand Court of the Thalcrew Empire was unlike anything Captain Daniel Reeves had ever seen. It was not a place made of stone or wood. Instead, the walls shimmered with energy fields, glowing in soft colors that shifted as the emotions in the chamber changed. High above, alien banners floated in the air, representing dozens of species across the galaxy. To Daniel, it felt like standing in the center of history itself. But history was not kind to him that day. The alien king, ruler of the Thalcrew and the heart of their empire, was dead. His sudden death during peace talks with Earth had shaken the galaxy. Some whispered it was poison. Others claimed it was a human trick. And now the court had gathered to decide humanity's fate. Daniel stood alone on a raised platform. He wore his Navy uniform, though it looked simple and small compared to the grand robes and jeweled armors of the alien nobles. Their eyes, many glowing, some with slits or multiple pupils, watched him with distrust. A booming voice echoed across the court. It belonged to High Justice Voren, a towering alien with silver skin and horns that curled like crowns. "Captain Daniel Reeves of Earth," Voren declared, "you stand before the great court. You were the human closest to our king before his final breath. Many believe your kind carries the blame. What do you say?" Daniel straightened his back. His heart pounded, but he forced his voice to remain steady. "The people of Earth came to your empire seeking peace, not war. I swear on my honor, humanity had no hand in the king's death." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some aliens hissed in doubt. Others tapped their claws or folded their arms. One counselor, a scaled alien with glowing orange eyes, sneered. "Humans are young, reckless, and greedy, always hungering for more. Why should we believe your words?" Daniel wanted to argue, but he knew anger would only make things worse. Instead, he spoke slowly, carefully. "Because Earth has nothing to gain from your king's death. We are not conquerors, we are explorers. We came with open hands." Silence followed. For a moment he thought his words had touched them. But then another voice rose, sharp and cold. "The king's death cannot go unanswered," said Lady Kivra, a noble whose face was hidden behind a golden mask. "If we do not act, the empire will fracture. War must have a price. The humans must pay it." The crowd roared in agreement. Some shouted for war. Others demanded Earth's surrender. Daniel felt his stomach sink. He had seen battles before, but this was worse. This was the fate of an entire world hanging by a thread. But then High Justice Voren raised his hand. The chamber quieted. His eyes glowed with thought as he studied Daniel. "Perhaps there is another way," he said. The air grew still. Daniel felt every gaze lock onto him. Voren continued. "The king left behind heirs, 3 daughters of great standing, Princess Lysera, Princess Shalyn, and Princess Valera. To preserve unity, they must not stand divided. They need a bond, strong enough to hold the empire together." Daniel frowned, not understanding. Voren's voice deepened. "The court's decision is this. You, Daniel Reeves of Earth, shall be bound to the royal line. You will marry the princesses of Thalcrew. Through this union, Earth shall be tied to the empire. The blood of humanity will stand with the crown." Gasps filled the chamber. Some shouted in shock. Others laughed in disbelief. Daniel felt his knees weaken. Marry alien princesses? He had expected punishment, exile, or maybe prison. Not this. His mind spun with questions. Why him? Why humanity? He opened his mouth to protest, but Voren silenced him with a raised hand. "This is not punishment, human. It is survival. For the Empire, and for your kind. Refuse, and the court will vote. For war against Earth. Accept, and you may yet save your people." Daniel's breath caught. This was no choice at all. The chamber doors opened with a hiss. 3 figures entered, their presence commanding silence. The alien princesses. The first, Lysera, moved with calm grace. Her robes shimmered like starlight, and her violet eyes studied Daniel with the cool calculation of a leader. She was the heir, the diplomat, the one most like her father. The second, Shalyn, wore armor instead of robes. Her sharp features and burning gaze made it clear she distrusted him. She carried herself like a warrior ready to strike at any moment. The third, Valira, was different. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, her steps lighter, her head tilting as if she wanted to see Daniel from every angle. She seemed younger, filled with questions, not judgment. The court bowed as the princesses took their places. Daniel felt their eyes on him, measuring, weighing, deciding. Lysera spoke first. Her voice was steady, regal. "So this is the human the court has chosen. Strange," Shalin scoffed. "He is weak, too fragile to lead, too soft to command. How can such a creature stand beside us?" Valira smiled faintly. "But he is different. I want to know more about him." Daniel swallowed hard. His heart thundered in his chest. He realized that from this moment on, his life and the life of every human would depend on what he said, what he did, and how he proved himself. He stood tall, meeting their gazes. "I am Daniel Reeves of Earth," he said firmly. "I do not know what the future holds, but if this is the path to peace between our peoples, then I will walk it." The chamber erupted again in shouts and murmurs. Some cheered, some cursed. But the decision had been made. High Justice Voron's voice rang out one final time. "Then it is sealed. The human shall wed the daughters of the late king. Let the bonds of empire and earth be forged." Daniel's world shifted forever, and, as the court dissolved into chaos, the three alien princesses exchanged glances. None of them knew what this human truly was: a tool, a danger, or something far greater than they expected. The news of the court's decision spread through the empire like fire. In every world under the Thalcrew banner, voices rose in anger, disbelief, or cautious hope. A human, chosen to marry the royal daughters? To many it was a joke. To others, it was an insult. And to some, it was a dangerous gamble. For Captain Daniel Reeves, it felt like walking in a dream he could not escape. The court had bound him to a destiny he never imagined. He was not a prince, not a noble, not even the strongest of men. He was just a soldier from Earth, now forced to stand beside the heirs of an empire. The next day, Daniel was summoned to the royal chambers. The three princesses waited for him, each surrounded by attendants and guards. The room was vast, filled with glowing crystals and symbols of the late king's reign. The air carried a heavy silence, as if even the walls were listening. Lysera, the eldest, spoke first. She sat tall on a throne-like chair, her violet eyes sharp and steady. "Human," she said, her voice calm but cold. "The court may have chosen you, but you do not yet have my trust. If we are to be bound, you must prove yourself worthy of the crown." Daniel bowed slightly. "I understand, Princess Lysera, but how can I prove that?" Before Lysera could answer, Shalin rose from her seat. Unlike her sister, she wore no flowing robes. Her armor gleamed, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes burned with anger. "You cannot," she snapped. "Humans are fragile. You are not strong enough to fight beside us. You are not cunning enough to rule beside us. You are a burden we did not ask for." Daniel met her gaze, steady but not hostile. "Perhaps, but I did not ask for this either. The court gave me no choice." Shalin's lips curled into a thin smile. "Then I will give you a choice. Face me in combat. If you fall easily, I will go to the court and demand this union be broken." Gasps filled the chamber. Even the attendants shifted uneasily. To challenge the chosen consort was dangerous, but Shalin was bold enough to risk it. Valira, the youngest, hurried forward, shaking her head. "Sister, no. He has just arrived. You cannot test him like this. He is not our enemy." Shalin glared at her but said nothing. Valira turned her wide eyes toward Daniel. "Forgive her, Captain. She does not know you as I wish to. I have studied humans, but I want to hear from you directly. Tell me of your world. Tell me what makes your people strong." Daniel blinked. He had expected hatred or suspicion, not curiosity. "Earth is Different from your worlds, he said slowly. We are young compared to your empire. We don't have the same great cities or advanced fleets, but we survive. No matter what comes, storms, wars, disasters, we adapt. That is, our strength, we keep moving forward. Lysera's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. Adaptation, she repeated. That is what makes humanity dangerous, according to the Council. You change too quickly, too unpredictable. Daniel shrugged faintly. Or maybe that is what makes us valuable. The chamber grew quiet. Lysera leaned back in her seat, her expression unreadable. Shaline paced like a restless beast, still glaring at him. Valira smiled faintly, clearly pleased with his answer. Then Lysera rose to her feet, her robe shining like liquid light. Listen well, human. The Empire is not stable. With our father gone, factions rise in the shadows. Some would see us fall, and they will use you as the spark to burn everything. If you wish to stand beside us, you must not only survive their hatred, you must win their respect. Do you understand? Daniel's throat felt dry, but he nodded. I do. Shaline stepped closer, her armor clinking softly. Then start with me, she said. If you cannot face a princess of Thalcru, how will you face the enemies waiting beyond these walls? Daniel did not want to fight her. He knew she was stronger, faster, trained from birth, but he also knew refusing would make him look weak. Slowly, the morning sun glimmered across the crystal towers of the Thalcru Palace, casting rainbow-colored reflections across the vast hallways. Captain Daniel Reeves walked cautiously through them, his every step watched by palace guards and attendants. He had learned quickly that in the Empire, even silence carried meaning. A whisper in the wrong place could turn allies into enemies. But Daniel also knew something the aliens did not fully understand. Humans thrived in uncertainty. It had been 2 days since his meeting with the princesses. Lysera remained distant, observing him with careful calculation. Shaline avoided him unless provoked, testing him with subtle challenges, often in the form of combat drills. Valira, however, was different. She followed him like a shadow, her curiosity about Earth and humanity endless. Daniel entered the training arena, a circular chamber large enough to hold dozens of warriors. Shaline was already there, her posture relaxed but ready, the slightest shift in her stance hinting at speed and power. Today, human, she said, you will show me what you can do. Daniel nodded. He had no illusions. Strength alone would not help him. Humans had weapons and strategy, not raw alien might. He focused instead on observation. Shaline moved in patterns, fast but predictable. He dodged, ducked, and used her momentum against her in small, clever ways. Shaline's eyes narrowed, surprise flickering in them. Not bad, she said finally. You think like a human, not a brute. That is different. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes, different is better. It was a small victory, but in the eyes of the princesses it was significant. Word of his success spread quietly through the palace. The guards who had doubted him began to watch him with interest. Even some of the attendants whispered about his unusual skill, the ability to survive without being the strongest. Valira approached him later, her wide eyes shining with excitement. Captain Reeves, you are clever. You see the gaps, the patterns others miss. On Earth, do all humans think like this? Daniel chuckled softly. Some do, some don't. But I believe humans survive by noticing what others overlook. That is what makes us adaptable. Valira nodded as if a light had turned on inside her. That is what we need. The Empire has grown rigid. The Council repeats the same actions, the same laws, the same traditions. You could change. That change. The word echoed in Daniel's mind. He had not come to the Empire to rule, yet the more he observed, the more he saw the cracks in its foundation. Tradition bound the Empire's leaders like chains. Factions whispered in secret. And the princesses, though powerful, were isolated, divided by pride and doubt. Later that day, Daniel was summoned to the court archives. Lizera waited, standing beneath a glowing map of the Empire. Her face was calm, but her violet eyes burned with curiosity. "You survived Shalene's tests," she said, "but surviving is not enough. The Empire is on the brink of disorder. You must understand our people, the factions, and the hidden threats. Can you do that?" Daniel nodded. "I can try. Humans survive by learning fast. We adjust to what we do not know." Lizera studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps that is your advantage. You are human. You see the world differently from us. If the Empire listens to you, maybe it will survive." That evening, Valira led Daniel to a quiet balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Strange alien plants glowed softly in the dark, their light reflecting in pools of water. She turned to him with a serious expression. "There is more danger than you realize," she said. "Some of the council do not want the princesses to rule. They believe the human will ruin everything. They will try to use this marriage to their advantage." Daniel frowned. "How?" Valira's gaze was steady. "By spreading doubt. By turning our people against us. By making you fail." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then I will not fail. I may not be strong like Shalin, but humans survive. We find ways to turn danger into advantage." Valira smiled faintly. "That is why I like you. You think differently, Captain. That is why you might succeed where others would fail." The next day, Daniel attended a council meeting with the princesses. He had no title, no claim, but his presence alone was enough to draw attention. The council members, many older and more experienced, sneered at him. They asked pointed questions, trying to trap him to make him stumble. But Daniel answered calmly, relying on logic, observation, and his understanding of human diplomacy. He did not rely on alien traditions because he did not know them. Instead, he pointed out patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities that the council had overlooked. Whispers spread quickly. Some council members frowned, confused. Others nodded, impressed. A few grew angry, seeing the human as a threat. Shalin watched from across the room, arms crossed. Her eyes softened slightly. She had doubted him, tested him, and now she realized that strength was not the only measure of worth. Daniel's mind, his creativity, and his courage were as powerful as any weapon. Lizera leaned closer, whispering, "You are learning fast. That is the human advantage. Never forget it." Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Advantage. That was his only way to survive and help the princesses. Strength alone would not save them, or humanity. As the sun set over the palace, Daniel stood with Valira, looking out at the city below. Alien airships moved across the sky, their lights bright against the dark horizon. "You may be small among us," Valira said softly, "but your mind is bigger than most. That is what will keep us alive." Daniel took a deep breath. "Then we will survive. Not because we are the strongest, but because we adapt. Because we think. Because we are human." The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, and for the first time since his arrival, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. The princesses might not yet trust him fully. The council might still plot against him, but one thing was certain. Humanity had a place in this empire, and Daniel Reeves would prove it. The trials were only beginning, but the advantage was his. The palace was quiet that night, but silence did not mean safety. Captain Daniel Reeves sat in his chamber, the glow of alien crystals casting shifting patterns on the walls. His mind was restless. Every corner of the empire seemed alive with whispers, secrets, and unseen dangers. He had survived Shalin's tests and gained a small measure of respect from the princesses. Yet he felt the presence of something darker, something that threatened not only him, but the entire Thalcrew Empire. Valira had stayed close, her curiosity and concern evident in her glowing eyes. "Daniel," she whispered, "the council is not unified. Some of them, they wanted your arrival to fail. Some may have had a hand in the king's death. You need to be careful." Daniel nodded slowly. I've noticed. They watch every step I take. They're waiting for me to make a mistake. Valira leaned closer. I think you underestimate them. It is not just a mistake they want. They want chaos. They want the Empire divided. The weight of her words pressed on him. Humanity had faced danger before, but this was different. Here, in a world of alien customs, power was subtle, and betrayal could hide behind the gentlest smile. The next day, Daniel was escorted to the council archives by Valira. She guided him past towering shelves filled with holographic records, glowing tablets, and data scrolls that chronicled the Empire's history for centuries. If you want to understand the Empire, you must study the past, she said. Many of the Council's plots are old. Some factions never change. The more you know, the more you can predict their moves. Daniel spent hours reading, absorbing. The ways of alien politics and strategy. Patterns emerged. Certain council members always aligned themselves secretly against the crown. Others wielded influence subtly, through whispers and manipulation. See here, Valira said, pointing. At a record, these counselors opposed the king's policies for years. They feared change. They feared the daughters might be too flexible, too open to ideas that could shift power. Daniel frowned. And now they see me as the weak link. If they manipulate the princesses, they could justify war against Earth. Valira nodded. Exactly. That is why they must not succeed. You are not only fighting for yourself, but for the Empire's survival. As he studied, a plan began to form in Daniel's mind. He could not fight them with strength. Humans did not have the raw power of Thalacru warriors, but humans had other advantages: creativity, unpredictability, and the ability to think differently. Lysera entered the archives quietly, her presence commanding attention despite her silence. You are learning fast, she said, her voice calm, but filled with authority. It is unusual. Most humans would be overwhelmed. You see through the shadows while others stumble blindly. Daniel looked up. I do what I must. The Empire is bigger than any of us. If we survive, we must understand the moves of those who wish to harm us. Lysera's eyes softened slightly. That is true wisdom. But beware. The closer you get to the truth, the more danger you invite. Some of the council would kill to keep their secrets. That evening, during a private dinner, Shaleen finally spoke to him with less hostility. You survive where others fail. You read people in ways that I do not. Do not mistake me. I still doubt you. But you are interesting. Daniel allowed, a small smile. I do not ask for trust, only a chance to prove it. Valira watched quietly, pleased, while Lysera remained thoughtful. The princesses were beginning to see him not as a human to tolerate, but as someone who might truly help. The peace of the evening shattered suddenly when a palace alarm mick. The morning air was crisp and heavy with anticipation. Captain Daniel Reeves stood at the edge of the training grounds, where the alien rebels had been spotted. Today was not a simple test of skill or diplomacy. It was a test of survival, strategy, and courage. Everything he had been learning in the days since his arrival. Valira approached quietly, her eyes filled with worry. Daniel, this is no ordinary threat. The rebels have allies inside the palace. If you fail, it will not only endanger the princesses, but the Empire itself. Daniel nodded, scanning the area. I know, but humans have survived worse. We adapt, we observe, and we act. That is our strength. Shaleen arrived next, her armor gleaming in the early light. She did not smile, but her stance showed respect. Do not underestimate them, she said. They are cunning, not just strong. But perhaps your kind's methods will surprise them. Daniel allowed a small smile. That is the plan. The rebels struck with speed, moving in from multiple entrances. Unlike the palace guards, they were not restrained by honor or rules. Their weapons glowed with strange energy, capable of cutting through metal and armor alike. Most Thalcrew warriors would have charged headlong, relying on brute force. Daniel shook his head. Humans did not win battles that way. Instead, he observed, he noted the attackers' patterns, their weaknesses, and their overconfidence. He spoke quickly to Shalin and a few trusted guards. Divide them, funnel them through the eastern corridor, use the barriers to slow their advance, cut off their retreat, force them into traps. Shalin blinked, impressed. Clever, not brute force, human strategy. The rebels were relentless, but Daniel's tactics worked. Using barricades, energy, gates, and carefully timed maneuvers, he turned the attack into a series of controlled encounters. The palace guards, guided by his strategy, began to gain the upper hand. Valira stayed close, carrying messages and coordinating movements. They didn't expect this, she whispered. Your thinking confuses them. They cannot adapt fast enough. Daniel felt a surge of determination. Humans survive because we can think differently, he said. We use what others overlook, as the battle raged. Daniel noticed a small group of rebels attempting to reach Princess Valira's chambers. Without hesitation, he led a small team to intercept them. The corridors were narrow, forcing the rebels to fight on his terms. He did not fight like a Thalcrew warrior. He dodged, used momentum, and directed his opponents into their own traps. One by one they fell, captured rather than killed. It was not easy. The rebels were fast, strong, and well-trained, but Daniel's human ingenuity turned the tide. Finally, the last rebel fell to the ground, struggling but alive. Daniel knelt, catching his breath. He glanced around. Shalin and Lysera had arrived, surveying the aftermath. Guards and attendants were beginning to regroup. Lysera's eyes softened as she looked at him. You have done what no other human could have done. You did not simply survive. You turned danger into advantage. That is remarkable. Shalin's gaze lingered on him longer than before. I doubted you, she said slowly. But today you have shown something beyond strength. You have strategy, courage, and foresight. Perhaps you are not so weak after all. Valira approached Daniel, her expression both relieved and proud. You see, Captain? That is why I trust you. Even when the odds seem impossible, humans find a way. You are not just surviving, you are shaping events. Daniel nodded, though exhaustion weighed heavily on him. We do what we must. Strength alone is not enough. Observation, patience, and clever action can be stronger than brute force. Lysera turned toward the council members who had gathered to observe the battle's outcome. You see what the human brings, she said firmly. He does not fight, like us. He thinks like us in ways we cannot predict. That is why he is valuable. That is why he must stand with the royal line, one counselor, a tall alien with golden scales, muttered under his breath. Perhaps he is not a fool. But can he truly lead? Lysera's gaze sharpened. Leadership is not always about ruling by fear or strength. Sometimes it is about guiding, inspiring, and surviving where others cannot. That is what he has shown. Daniel, still catching his breath, allowed himself a small, weary smile. He had survived not because he was the strongest, but because he had used what humans always had: ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. As the rebels were taken into custody, Daniel realized the depth of the challenge ahead. The council would not stop plotting. Factions would continue to rise, and the empire's stability hung by a delicate thread. But he had earned something vital that day: the recognition that humans were not weak, that he could influence events in ways the Thalcrew did not expect. That evening, Daniel met with the princesses in private. Lysera's expression was calm but thoughtful. The Empire is testing you at every turn, she said. They will continue to challenge you. But remember this: the advantage is yours. You think differently. You see what others do not. That is power in its own right. Shalin nodded silently. I will admit I was wrong to doubt you. You have proven yourself in ways I cannot ignore. Valira smiled warmly. And I have no doubt you will continue to do so. Your mind is your weapon, Daniel. That is why we need you." Daniel looked out over the palace grounds, the stars beginning to appear above. He thought of Earth, of the people who had entrusted him with their safety, of the empire that now depended on him in ways he never imagined. The battle had been a trial by fire, and he had survived. But more than survival, he had demonstrated something important, that being human, clever, adaptable, unpredictable, was an advantage the aliens could not ignore. He whispered softly to himself, "Strength alone does not win wars. Cleverness, courage, and adaptability do. That is what it means to be human." The shadows of rebellion would rise again, and danger still lurked unseen in the corners of the empire. But Daniel Reeves, human among aliens, was no longer just surviving. He was influencing the empire, gaining allies, and showing that the human mind could stand against the greatest threats of the galaxy. For the first time since arriving, he felt a quiet confidence. The trials were not over, but he was ready. The great court of the Thalcrew Empire was filled with tension. Every alien noble, council member, and palace attendant watched the proceedings with bated breath. Today, the fate of the empire, and of humanity's place within it, would be decided. Captain Daniel Reeves stood at the center, flanked by the three princesses, Lysera, Shalyn, and Valira. They had changed since his arrival. Where suspicion and rivalry once ruled, now respect and cautious trust bound them together. Yet the council still whispered in dark corners, their faces tight with doubt and malice. High Justice Voran's voice rang out, commanding silence. "We gather today to determine the future of the Thalcrew Empire. Allegations have been made against Captain Daniel Reeves of Earth. It is claimed he is unworthy to stand beside the royal line. He is accused of corruption, manipulation, and endangering our people." Daniel's chest tightened. He had anticipated challenges, but public accusation before the court was daunting. Yet he did not falter. He met the eyes of each princess, drawing courage from their trust. Lysera stepped forward first, her voice strong. "Captain Reeves has shown intelligence, courage, and loyalty. He has saved lives, uncovered threats, and guided us through crises that could have destroyed the empire. These are not the actions of a traitor or fool." Shalyn, still cautious but no longer hostile, added, "I doubted him. I tested him. I thought his human ways weak. But I was wrong. Today, he stands not as an outsider but as a protector. His mind is as sharp as any blade." Valira's words followed, gentle yet firm. "He has seen what we cannot. He has thought what we could not think. He has proven that humans, though different, are strong in ways the Thalcrew have forgotten." Murmurs spread through the court. Some council members stiffened. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel realized the tide was slowly turning. Voran's gaze fell upon him. "Captain Reeves, the council demands proof. Speak now and show us why you are worthy of standing beside the royal daughters." Daniel took a deep breath. "I do not ask for your approval through words alone, but I have evidence of the council's treachery. The king's death was no accident, and the recent attacks were orchestrated to weaken the empire and blame humanity. I present the records, intercepted messages, and testimonies of those involved." Holographic projections appeared, filling the chamber with detailed evidence. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Some tried to deny, some tried to blame, but the proof was undeniable. The rebellion and attacks were carefully planned, not random events. Lysera's expression softened. "The human speaks truth. The empire must recognize the danger that hides within its own walls." One counselor, the same golden-scaled alien who had muttered before, stood trembling. This cannot be ignored. The evidence, it is irrefutable." Voran's eyes glowed with thought. After a long pause, he spoke. "It seems the human has done what few could. He has survived, adapted, and uncovered the truth. He has earned not only his place beside the royal daughters, but the respect of this court." The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, the nobles began to nod. Whispers turned to murmurs of agreement. Even some of the most skeptical council members could not deny Daniel's ingenuity, courage, and insight.